Alright, so hello and welcome back to my Let's Play of Europa Universalis 3 Divine Wind. And let's just get right in there, we'll load up our save. So as you can see, nothing's really changed since last time. I mean, I haven't even unpaused the game yet. Last time I was going through all the user interface and stuff like that, so this time we'll actually get into the real meat of the game, the actual gameplay. And before we start, let's just look at what England's situation is within Western Europe. So you can see we've got, what is modern day England and a bit of Ireland, which will be expanding very, very soon. We've got Scotland to the north. They're kind of a threat, but not really. We can easily take them on at this time. And you can see we own Calais here in northern France, which is not really that useful as territory because it's completely surrounded by another country called Burgundy here. And at the bottom here we've got, French Aquitaine, which is, Gascon, Le Bord. And those are fairly wealthy provinces. We want to be, keeping hold of them. Okay, so here we can see, the full extent of the English armies, which is 7 regiments of infantry here and another regiment of infantry. No cavalry yet, but we'll increase that soon enough. So first thing I'm going to do is just join these up here at London. May as well have them together once. So we'll just change the slider to centralization. Ooh, don't want him going through there. We'll change him, go that way instead. Okay, so if you look at the English economy, you see we're losing minus 4.58 per month, which is totally normal, that's fine, and we're getting in 74.96 annually, which is actually fairly good, at this point in the game. And you won't be hiring any advisors here, since none of them are really too useful. See, all we've got is reinforcement speed and spy efficiency. And maybe morale of armies, that's kind of useful, but only 2-star, and that's really not worth it in the long run. So we'll just leave advisors alone for now, since they're kind of just a waste of money at this point. And what we'll be doing is spending most of our money in upgrading our army, so we can actually, conquer all these Irish provinces, since we have that mission, which we may as well complete now. And then after that, maybe conquer Scotland, and hopefully get Normandy and Co back from the French, but that'll be quite a hard endeavour. Okay, so now we're going to expand our armies. Whenever you want to actually recruit something, just click on whatever province you want to recruit it from, and then at the bottom here you've got a bunch of options. You've got provincial decisions, which, well, we'll go into later when we actually have to use them. And then we've got recruit regiment, which is the one we want. So you can just recruit some halberd infantry or some shiv or shi, I think, some cavalry to your army. And yeah, you can see the costs there and how long it's going to take to build. Next you've got hire mercenaries, and this is something that you won't really want to do too often, because while, as you can see, they are quite cheap and they do recruit much faster, they're also really expensive to maintain. So you only want to do it in dire straits when you need extra troops in a war really fast. And then finally here you've got build ship, which obviously you can only do in any, which you can't do in any landlocked provinces. And you've got three choices of ships. You've got the Carrack, which is your main warship that you're going to be using, which is really expensive and takes almost a year to build. Then you've got galleys, which are just, they're kind of like the frigates of the 15th century, so nowhere near as powerful as a Carrack, but they can be a useful addition to your navy if you can't afford a Carrack. And the cogs are basically your transport ships, which aren't very useful in combat, but are very useful for getting your armies around. And if you run down the transports, what it basically means is if you have one cog, then you can load up one regiment. So that makes it fairly easy to keep track how many cogs you actually need. And as you can see, England starts off with probably the most powerful fleet in the game, as Carracks are really expensive in the early game, and we start with 30 of them, which is pretty much unprecedented in all of Europe. This pretty much guarantees us naval superiority in any war we're going to fight, which is going to be really helpful when for invading France and maybe other countries. We'll see later on. We don't have any light ships or galleys, but we do have 13 transports, so we can carry 13 regiments across the ocean. But we'll probably want to get a few more of them later on. So first, let's recruit some troops. We'll get 2 regiments of cavalry. And some troops as well. We're gonna go. That's something you should keep in mind, because you do lose money every month, so you always need some money left over. So we'll just cancel one of these regiments of cavalry, and we'll do that next show when we get our annual income. So always make sure you have enough money, you know, to last you for the rest of the year. Otherwise you'll be forced to take out a loan. You don't really have any choice in that, and then you really don't want to be, you know, taking too many loans after repaying them back, because that money could be used for something much more useful. So before we do anything though, we'll want to declare war on some of these minor Irish states, because if you look at them, they've only got, you know, 1 regiment armies, and that's really not going to pose any of a threat to us. But the problem is though, they can get into an alliance with, you know, more powerful European countries like France or Brittany or Burgundy here, and before you start the game fighting on pause, you know, a lot of these minor nations, like the ones in Ireland, won't have any alliances with other countries, but as soon as you start the game, they'll start to rack them up quite fast. So before you do anything, these like southern Irish states here, you can see here, when you go to declare war on them, it doesn't tell you that they've got any alliances with other countries. Where if I was going to declare war on someone like France, you know, hang on. Yeah, if we declare war on Brittany here, you can see it says that they're allied with Burgundy. So before, you know, these Irish states ally with anyone, we're going to want to declare war on them. And as you can see, because we have our current mission to conquer Ireland, we do get a casus belli. Now, what casus belli are basically, before you declare war on someone, you need a reason to go to war. Otherwise, it's unjust and it's really bad. And you can see here on the side, you know, you've got stability effects for every casus belli that you use. Basically, if you have no casus belli, you're always going to lose -2 stability, you know, no matter what. And if you're a really minor nation, you know, losing stability isn't that much, because you're going to get it back really fast. But if you're a bigger nation, especially one like England, you don't want to be losing, you know, any stability wherever it's possible. So when you click on the conquest one, you see we have no stability effects, so it's going to be absolutely fine to declare war on them. And as you notice there, when you hover over conquest, it has a bunch of, you know, effects to do with this war. So you can see with the conquest casus belli, when we conquer them, you know, it only costs 40% of the infamy, we get 100% of the prestige, and the 75% cost for their province. And we'll go into that a bit later once we've actually succeeded in the war, and you'll see how these come into play. But you also notice at the bottom it says full annexation and conquest of Leinster. Basically, whenever you, just because you've got a reason, you know, to declare war on them, you can't just do whatever you want once you've declared war on them. You can only, you know, force upon certain things that the casus belli allows you to. Otherwise, it's going to cost a lot more infamy than usual. So you can see for this one, because we've got conquest, you know, what we're supposed to do is conquest Leinster, which is what we're going to do. So you click on the conquest one. You can, here at the bottom, automatically call all your allies to war, but if you hover over it, you can see, you know, how likely they're going to join to the war. So before you do that, always check that, you know, some important ally isn't going to join you in the war, so then you obviously don't call them. Because if you don't call them to the war, you know, you're not going to lose the alliance with them. They're still going to be your ally, but they're not going to join you in this war. So we won't call Portugal into it, because really we don't need to do it. So here we'll just declare war on them, and we'll declare on Munster. The reason I'm only declaring on the southern states first is, well, one, not to get the whole of Ireland at war with me once. That might be a little too much for us right now at this early stage in the game. And something I've noticed with England is, it's only that you can leave these northern states as long as you want. They really won't ally with many people. But these two like kingdoms of Munster and Leinster, they have a really bad habit of getting into alliances with Brittany and France, and you really don't want to be at war with them unless, you don't want to be caught unprepared while going to war with them. So we'll just declare war on these 7 states here, declare war on Munster as well. We've got the Conquest Castles Belli for them as well. Once again, we won't call Portugal, we really don't need to. We can always call them in later at any point in the war if we want to. Okay, now you can see at the side here, little coats of arms. These just tell you, who you're at war with and what it's called, and a quick, display of what your war score is, which is that percentage number. And a war score is basically how well you're doing in war. Whenever you win a battle or conquer a region, your war score will go up. And we'll explain, why that's useful once we've actually won the war. So yeah, we'll just quickly form up our armies and recruit these 2 more regiments, and well, first we'll take care of this rebellion obviously, and then we'll go and take to these armies here. Really won't pose danger, probably won't even manage to conquer Meath before we actually get there, so it'll be alright. And one thing you need to there's only one hotkey in this game that you really need to know, and that's the pause unpause button, which is the spacebar, and that saves you having to click on the date every time you want to unpause and pause, and especially if you're playing at quite a fast speed. It's really important to always have your hand on the pause button. So here we go, the game's started up. You can just increase the speed of it, and you can see already loads of stuff's going on at the bottom here, and these are basically just events that are going around the world. So you got military messages, which is just like various wars are being declared, diplomatic messages, which are realm marriages, alliances, stuff like that. You got government messages, which are when people change government and stuff like that. You've got trade messages, which are people joining trade leagues and stuff. That's not really too important, you don't need to focus on that. And then you've got event messages, which is like other events firing off in other places. And if that's kind of getting in your way, you can just right click it there and it'll just disappear. But of course you can always click on any of them if you want to get further information. So yeah, we'll just keep the game going. As you can see, our armies move along to join up with them. And as the end of the month comes around, as you can see, we've already lost some of our money, but that'll come back at the end of the year, so it's alright. And what you notice there is, whenever you have 2 regiments in the same province, you can always combine them with a little button here. It says here create unit, but when there's 2 of them, you can just combine them with the same button. So we'll just wait for these troops to finish, and as you can see, they're sending their 1 regiment armies over to Meath, but that doesn't really matter. It's going to be a long time before they conquer that province, and even if they do conquer it, it doesn't matter. It won't have too big of an effect on our economy. And you might have noticed this at the bottom left, which is anytime like another country asks for a realm marriage or an alliance or calls you to another war, it'll always appear at the bottom left, sorry. So always, keep focusing on this part of the screen just in case something comes up. You don't want to miss like a call to a war or an offer of alliance from a really powerful country, because those don't come too often. So you see we've got a royal marriage offer from Navarro, which is this tiny Spanish country here, which we'll just ignore. We'll decline it. Same thing really. And yeah, that won't really, I don't need to get a royal marriage with them, especially if I want to declare war on them later on. You don't want to have a royal marriage with a country you can declare war on. As you can see, we've got a trade embargo from Castile. That doesn't matter, you can just click off. That probably won't even happen to you. So we'll wait for these new regiments to finish, maybe recruit some more at the end of the year, and then we'll send our army out and conquer these Irish provinces.